Welcome to a special edition of Jesus or Muhammad, where today we will examine what Islam really teaches about Allah and Jesus. We will take a look at the teachings of Islam and determine if the Allah of Islam has helped make Christianity the world's most dominant religion. With us today we have David Wood, who will take us through some facts about the Quran and some facts about history to determine if and how Islam has deceived billions of people through its rejection of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. David, welcome to the show. Why don't you give us a brief introduction on the so-called deception of what Islam teaches about God and the importance about discussing such an issue?
All right, thank you, Summer. And yes, the issue before us is mainly that Muslims claim that Christians have a distorted or perverted view of God, that we disrespect God by what we say about Jesus, things of that nature. Yet when we look a little bit deeper, we find that Islam actually insults and blasphemes God and insults Jesus as well through its teachings. Now, what we're going to go over right now, we're going over facts. I'm only going to appeal to two things. One, facts about what the Quran teaches, and two, facts about history. We're going to see, based on just the facts, not my interpretations, not my opinions, but on facts about what the Quran teaches and facts about history, that Islam is hopelessly trapped in errors and contradictions, and there's really no way out. So let's examine these facts, and if you disagree with anything I'm saying, please call in and show me where I've made an error. So fact number one, I'm going to list 10 facts here. Fact number one, according to the Quran, Jesus was a messenger of God and a prophet of Islam. Islam teaches Jesus was a prophet and messenger of Islam. No, shouldn't be any disputes there. Let me read to you a couple of passages. In Surah 19, verses 23 through 26, we read, and the throes of childbirth compelled Mary to betake herself to the trunk of a palm tree. She said, "Oh, would that I had died before this and had been a thing quite forgotten." Then the child, Jesus, called out to her from beneath her, "Grieve not, surely your Lord has made a stream to flow beneath you, and shake towards you the trunk of the palm tree, it will drop on you fresh ripe dates. So eat and drink and refresh the eye." Just a few verses later, verses 30 through 33, Jesus says, "Surely I am a servant of Allah. He has given me the book and made me a prophet. And he has made me blessed wherever I may be, and he has enjoined on me prayer and porate so long as I live, and dutiful to my mother, and he has not made me insolent, unblessed. And peace on me on the day I was born, and on the day I die, and on the day I am raised to life." So Jesus here, and in many other passages, if you'd like to look them up, you can look up Surah 42:13, you can look up Surah 43:59, and the verses that follow. And you'll see over and over again the Quran claims that Jesus was a prophet of Islam. Shouldn't be any disputes here. That's a simple fact. Fact number two. According to Islam, Jesus won a number of followers who were Muslims. Jesus didn't just preach and no one listened to him. Jesus preached and people believed his message and became Muslims. This is a simple fact about what Islam teaches. Let me show you that I'm correct here. In Surah 3:52 we read, when Jesus found unbelief on the part of the Jews, he said, "Who will be my helpers to the work of Allah?" The disciples said, "We are Allah's helpers. We believe in Allah, and do thou bear witness that we are Muslims." Here, Jesus' followers are saying, "We're Muslims." Surah 5, verse 111. "And behold, I inspired the disciples of Jesus to have faith in me and my messenger. They said, 'We have faith, and do thou bear witness that we bow to Allah as Muslims.'" So Jesus didn't just preach and he wasn't completely ignored by the people around him. He won followers in the first century who were Muslims, considered themselves Muslims, acted like Muslims, believed as Muslims, practiced as Muslims. Shouldn't be any dispute here. Fact number three. In the Quran, Allah promises Jesus that his followers would be superior to unbelievers until the day of resurrection. Notice what this says. It doesn't say Jesus is going to win followers and they're immediately going to be corrupted by the Apostle Paul or something like that. It said these followers are going to be victorious and superior to the day of resurrection. Read Surah 3:55. "Behold, Allah said, O Jesus, I will take thee and raise thee to myself and clear thee of the falsehoods of those who blaspheme. I will make those who follow thee superior to those who reject faith to the day of resurrection. Then shall ye all return unto me, and I will judge between you of the matters wherein ye dispute. So, Jesus' followers, the people who are around him claiming that they are Muslims, would, according to Allah's promise, be victorious and superior to those who reject Jesus until the day of resurrection. Fact number 4, this will be a historical fact. If there were any first century Jews who converted to Islam at the preaching of Jesus, they didn't last very long. How do we know this? Well, we have no record of any first century followers of Jesus, or second century followers of Jesus, or third century followers of Jesus, or fourth or fifth century followers of Jesus who were Muslims, who believed what Muslims believe, who practice as Muslims believe. We have no record. So if they did exist, if you say, well, maybe they were all lost, maybe they all disappeared, something like that, fine, you can believe that if you want, but it's a simple fact that if they did exist, they disappeared rather quickly, because we don't have a shred of evidence anywhere that they ever existed. We have no records of them. So all I'm saying here is, if they did exist, we don't have any records, so they must have disappeared pretty quickly. Fact number 5, according to the Quran, Allah helped Jesus' followers gain the upper hand over the Jews. Allah helped Jesus' followers gain the upper hand over the Jews. Let's read in the Quran, Surah 61, verse 14. O you who believe, be helpers in the cause of Allah. As Jesus, son of Mary, said to his disciples, who are my helpers in the cause of Allah? The disciples said, we are helpers in the cause of Allah. So a party of the children of Israel believed, and another party disbelieved. Then we aided those who believed against their enemy, and they became uppermost. So, what this passage is saying, some of the Jews rejected Jesus, and some of the Jews believed in Jesus. These were his good Muslim followers. So certain Jews believed in Jesus, and Allah helped them and strengthened them until these followers of Jesus ultimately became more powerful than the Jews. So there shouldn't be any dispute here. The Quran teaches that Allah helped Jesus' true followers until they became more powerful than the Jews. No dispute here. Fact number 6. The only followers of Jesus who ever became more powerful than the Jews were Christians who believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. Let me read that again. The only followers of Jesus who ever became more powerful than the Jews were Christians who believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. What do I mean here? Well, if you say there were some first century Muslim followers of Jesus, they certainly never became more powerful than the Jews. We, again, don't even have any record that they existed. They couldn't have been very powerful. The only followers who actually became very powerful were Christians when Christianity took over the Roman Empire. That's when Christians became very powerful. But we know that the Christians who ultimately were part of the Roman Empire believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. They didn't believe in Islam. And just to give you some support here, this is Yusuf Ali's translation of the Quran. Yusuf Ali comments on Surah 61:14, where Allah says that he's going to help Jesus' followers until they become more powerful than the Jews. Let me read it to you. This is Yusuf Ali's commentary on 61:14. A portion of the children of Israel, the one that really cared for truth, believed in Jesus and followed his guidance. But the greater portion of them were hard-hearted and remained in their beaten track of formalism and false racial pride. The majority seemed at first to have the upper hand when they thought they had crucified Jesus and killed his message. But they were soon brought to their senses. Jerusalem was destroyed by Titus in AD 70, and the Jews have been scattered ever since. The wandering Jew has become a byword in many literatures. On the other hand, those who followed Jesus permeated the Roman Empire, brought many new races within their circle, and through the Roman Empire, Christianity became the predominant religion of the world until the advent of Islam. What does Yusuf Ali say about what Surah 61:14 means? He says that when it says that when Allah declares that the followers of Jesus would ultimately overpower the Jews, this is referring to Christians who permeated the world, took over the Roman Empire, and so on. But we know what those Christians were teaching. We have records from them. We have writings from them. We know what the Orthodox position was during that time. They believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. So, keep in mind here, according to the Quran, pay attention to where we're going, according to the Quran, Allah is strengthening the true followers of Jesus until they become dominant. But the followers who became dominant believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. So according to Islam, not according to me, according to Islam, Allah strengthened people who believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity until they became dominant over the Jews. So Allah helped people who believe what now is considered shirk. Allah helped them until they took over the Roman Empire and became the world's dominant religion. This is what your religion teaches. Fact number 7. The Quran states that the Injil, the gospel, was given as a guidance. So Allah delivered some message in first century Israel that was a guidance and called the gospel. Read in Surah 3:3. He has revealed to you the book with truth, verifying that which is before it, and he revealed the Torah and the gospel aforetime, a guidance for the people, and he sent the Quran. So Allah revealed the gospel as a guidance for the people. That's a fact according to Islam. Fact number 8. According to the Quran and Hadith, Christians still possessed the gospel during Muhammad's time. It wasn't lost, it wasn't changed, it wasn't corrupted. Christians still had it in Muhammad's time. What do we read in the Quran and the Hadith? Let's look at a few passages. Surah 10:94. But if you are in doubt as to what we have revealed to you, this is Allah speaking to Muhammad. Muhammad, if you're doubting, if you're in doubt about these revelations that we're giving you, if you are in doubt as to what we have revealed to you, ask those who read the book before you. Who's this? Christians and Jews. Ask those who read the book before you. Certainly the truth has come to you from your Lord. Therefore you should not be of the disputers. So Allah tells Muhammad, if you're doubting what I'm revealing to you, go to the people of the book, go to the Jews and the Christians and ask them if this is the truth. Well, if Muhammad can go to the Christians and Jews and ask them about what their books teach, obviously they still had the books. If they didn't, if the books had been lost, it would make no sense for Allah to say, go ask the Christians and Jews about what their books teach. Surah 7:157 refers to those who follow the messenger, the unlettered prophet, whom they find mentioned in their own scriptures, in the law and the gospel. It is they who will prosper. So this passage refers to people during Muhammad's time who had the scriptures, the law and the gospel, and could look and find Muhammad in these scriptures. What does this presuppose? It presupposes that they still had the law and the gospel. The gospel was still available to them. People had it. Surah 5, verse 47. Let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah hath revealed therein. If any do fail to judge by the light of what Allah hath revealed, they are no better than those who rebel. Here, the Quran commands Christians to judge matters based on what they find in the gospel. Well, if Muhammad is standing there in 7th century Arabia saying, you Christians, you better judge by what Allah has revealed in the gospel, this presupposes that they had the gospel, that it was available to them. And this would mean, of course, that the gospel had survived from the 1st century down to the time of Muhammad. So the gospel must have been copied and recopied down to the time of Muhammad. And we don't only find this in the Quran, we also find it in the Hadith, your most trusted collections of Ahadith. Consider Sahih al-Bukhari, number 3. Khadijah then accompanied him to her cousin Waraka bin Nawfal, who during the pre-Islamic period became a Christian and used to write the writing with Hebrew letters. He would write from the gospel in Hebrew as much as Allah wished him to write. So Khadijah's cousin, Waraka, used to write down the gospel. He used to translate the gospel, make copies of the gospel. If he's making copies or translating, this presupposes that he had the gospel, that it was still available in Muhammad's time. So there's no disputing that the gospel still existed in the time of Muhammad. 2 more facts. Fact number 9. If there was a first century gospel fundamentally different from the New Testament gospels, it was corrupted immediately or lost. It must have been. Follow me now. We don't have any gospel for the first 6 centuries that matches with what Islam claims. We don't have it. So the only thing Muslims can say is either it was lost, we just don't have it anymore, it disappeared, or it was corrupted. In other words, what we have in the Bible was originally the gospel, but over the centuries it was corrupted, changed, altered, and so on. But what you should regard as a fact here is we don't have any book that matches up with what Islam teaches. We don't have any book that goes back to the first century that matches what Islam teaches. So you only have two choices here. One, the book still exists, but it's been corrupted, something like the Bible. You would say that about the Bible. Or two, the book's just completely lost and the Bible doesn't actually go back. The Bible is not the gospel, not even a corrupted version of the gospel. The Bible is something different, and the true gospel was just lost. So the only options here are either the book was lost or it was corrupted. But if you disagree with me, then all you have to do is say, here's the gospel. Here's what Muhammad was talking about. And I invite you to show me anything that looks like the gospel going back to the first century. So that's a fact. If there was a first century gospel, fundamentally different from the New Testament gospels, it must have been corrupted immediately or lost. Fact number 10. According to the Quran, Allah tricked the Jews into believing that they had crucified Jesus. So where did Christian belief in Jesus' death arise? Where did it come from? According to Islam, Christians believe in Jesus' death on the cross because Allah tricked people into believing that Jesus died on the cross. So let me read what the Quran says, Surah 4, 157 and 158. They, talking about the Jews, they said in boast, "We killed Christ Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. But they killed him not, nor crucified him. But so it was made to appear to them, and those who differ therein are full of doubts with no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow. For of a surety they killed him not, nay, Allah raised him up unto himself, and Allah is exalted in power and wise." So according to this passage, people believed that they were crucifying Jesus, but they didn't actually do it. Now, how do Muslims interpret this verse? Well, there are two main interpretations. One, Allah replaced someone. Allah put someone else on the cross and disguised that person to make him look like Jesus, so that everyone thought that they were crucifying Jesus when they really weren't. And the other interpretation, which is more recent, but it's what we call swoon theory or apparent death theory, namely that Allah did allow Jesus to be crucified, but he miraculously sustained Jesus so that everyone thought that he was dead when he really wasn't dead. Notice that either way, Allah tricked people into believing that Jesus was dead. So if he disguised someone else, if he took Judas and made him look like Jesus, then Allah tricked people into believing that Jesus was dead on a cross. Or if Allah miraculously kept Jesus alive, but kept him from dying until people believed that he was actually dead when he wasn't, then Allah still tricked people. Either way, Allah is the source of the belief that Jesus died on the cross. And according to the Quran, the Jews believe that Jesus had been crucified because Allah tricked them. Well, where did Christians get the idea? Because Christians came to believe that Jesus died on the cross too. Well, it must have been when Allah tricked everyone into believing that Jesus died on the cross. So there's no way around this. According to Islam, it's a fact that belief in Jesus' death on the cross, which is essential to Christianity, that belief was started not by the Apostle Paul corrupting Christianity, not by someone else corrupting Christianity. That belief was started by Allah himself. So everything I've said, those 10 facts, the 10 facts that I've just given you, are all either facts about what the Quran teaches, or they're facts about history. They're facts of history, indisputable facts of history. For instance, if Jesus had followers who were first century Muslims, they didn't last very long. Why? Because we had no record of them. If there was a gospel that matches what Islam teaches, it must have been corrupted or disappeared. Why? Because we don't have any. It's a simple fact of history. We don't have any book that matches that. So everything I've said so far is a fact about Islamic teachings and facts of history. And what we'll see throughout this program, as Muslims are free to challenge and so on, this raises a number of problems.
Assuming that the Muslim view is correct, what happened to Jesus' Muslim followers? That's a question that has been posed to Muslims that has gone unanswered. So if you'd like to call and give us an answer, call us in the studio. We're live at 248-416-1300. you like to comment on that real quick before we take our call?
Yes, this is just a massive problem. Look, consider the facts that we've gone over. One, according to Islam, Jesus had first century Muslim followers. We have no record of these Muslim followers ever existing, so something must have changed and corrupted their belief. Well, what could have corrupted their belief? What did these Christians come to believe? That Jesus died on the cross for them. Where did they get the idea that Jesus died on the cross? From Allah. So think about this. The belief of these first century Muslims must have been corrupted. Who corrupted their belief? It must have been Allah. Now think about this, my friends, because this really it baffles me. It boggles my mind how any of you Muslims could believe this. Follow me now. Jesus had first century followers. So Jesus comes, he preaches, and people submit to his message. They say, yes, we're willing to believe what you say, Jesus. These are people who are willing to believe that Jesus is a prophet, and they're willing to believe in what he says. And then immediately, Allah tricks and deceives them into believing that Jesus died on the cross. This corrupts their belief, and they go on to become Christians who commit shirk. Do you believe this? Do you believe that Allah will deceive even people who follow his prophets? You have to believe that if you're a Muslim. You have to believe that Jesus had Muslim followers, and that the beliefs of these Muslim followers was corrupted by who? By Allah, who tricked and deceived them into believing that Jesus died on the cross. So Allah corrupted the message of Jesus until it became Christianity. So according to Islam, Christianity was started, at least in part, by the deception of Allah. So here we are 2,000 years later. I believe Jesus died on the cross. Why do I believe that Jesus died on the cross? Why am I a Christian? If Islam is true, I believe it because Allah tricked people back in the first century, and Allah must have known that this was going to become the largest religion in the world. And so Allah started the largest religion in the world by deceiving people. You Muslims, why would Allah do that? Please let us know why Allah tricked and deceived literally billions of people into believing that Jesus died on the cross. I'd like to know.
Okay, second question I want to pose to the Muslims. Why would God lead Jesus' followers astray, even indirectly, and destroy everything Jesus had worked so hard to accomplish?
Why would Allah lead Jesus' followers astray, even though Jesus had spent his entire life? Remember that Jesus starts preaching at birth, according to Islam. So Jesus preaches for 30 or 33 years or so, wins followers to Islam, performs all kinds of miracles to confirm his message. And when people believe in it, Allah comes in immediately and tricks everyone into believing in false beliefs, and then, of course, they become Christians and they commit shirk. Why? Why, in the name of common sense, would Allah say, think about this, this is what Allah has to say. Allah knows the future, Allah knows what's going to happen. According to Islam, Allah says something like this: I'm going to send Jesus, one of the greatest messengers of all time. I'm going to send him, and he's going to preach, and he's going to win followers, and he's going to live the most miraculous life in history, even according to Islam. He's going to be born of a virgin. He's going to speak during birth. He's going to raise the dead. He's going to cure the lepers. He's going to cure the blind and the deaf. And after he convinces people, I'm immediately going to go and destroy everything he's worked for, convince people that he died on the cross. And Allah, of course, knows that this belief is ultimately going to lead to Christianity, which, according to Islam, is the world's largest false religion. So why? Why does Allah say that he's going to send Jesus to accomplish some work and then immediately destroy everything that Jesus had worked for? Why? Why would Allah? In other words, if Allah tricked everyone into believing Jesus died on the cross, what was the purpose? What good came out of it? Because the only thing that came out of it was Christianity, and according to Muslims, Christianity is a false, corrupt religion. Who corrupted it? Allah. Please explain this to us. Why would Allah send Jesus and then immediately corrupt Jesus' message? I'd like to know.
Why did Allah tell his followers would be superior until the day of resurrection? Let me read that again. Why did Allah tell Jesus that his followers would be superior until the day of resurrection? Do you know the answer to that question? Call us live in the studio, 248-416-1300. David.
This is another massive problem, because remember, we don't have any record of Jesus' followers ever being Muslims, anyone for the first several centuries of Christianity being Muslims or having Muslim beliefs and practices. So why? Remember, Allah knows the future, and Allah knows when he's talking to Jesus that He's about to corrupt Jesus' message and distort it and trick people into believing that Jesus died on the cross. Allah knows this. He knows he's about to deceive people and that this is going to start Christianity. So why would Allah lie to Jesus' followers and say, these followers of yours, they're going to be victorious and superior until the day of resurrection, when he actually knows that Jesus is going to die, Allah is going to trick them, the Apostle Paul is going to come in and trick them even more, and that their beliefs are going to be completely corrupted and they're going to believe in a false message and commit shirk. Why would Allah lie? It has to be a lie. It has to be a lie according to Islam, because Allah is telling Jesus' followers, is telling Jesus that his followers are going to be victorious. Until, not for 5 years, not for 10 years, until the day of resurrection. That's a long time. Jesus' followers are going to be victorious. And Allah tells Jesus, your followers are going to be victorious until then, until resurrection day. And yet Allah, if he knows the future, knows that he's about to come in, trick and deceive Jesus' followers into believing that Jesus died on the cross, and that the Apostle Paul is going to come in there and completely distort Christianity, and that a corrupted version of Christianity is ultimately going to take over the Roman Empire. Allah knows this. And so if he's telling Jesus that his followers are going to be superior until the day of resurrection, he must be lying to Jesus. Please tell us why Allah is lying to one of his greatest prophets. We'd like to know.
David, if the Injil was given to a man as guidance, why didn't Allah preserve his message rather than help start a heresy? Why do you think Muslims can't answer that question?
Well, because they can't answer it, because there's just no answer. No matter how they answer this question, Islam turns out to be false. So if the Injil was given as a guidance, why didn't Allah preserve this message instead of changing it into a heresy? So think about what we're asking here. According to the Quran, Surah 3:3, Allah reveals the Injil. Jesus preaches the Injil, somehow writes this book down, passes the message on to his followers, and then Allah comes in there, corrupts the message, changes it to the belief that Jesus dies on the cross. So Allah corrupts the message, then doesn't stop the Apostle Paul from coming in there and corrupting it even more. But think about this. Allah lets Jesus do so much work and then helps corrupt it and allows someone else to come in and corrupt it. So Allah couldn't even preserve his word for even a few decades. And according to the Quran, no one can corrupt the word of Allah. So explain this to us, please. According to the Quran, no one can corrupt Allah's word. But according to what you're telling me, the Injil must have been corrupted almost immediately, partially by Allah. Allah helped corrupt it. So the question is, why? Why did Allah reveal the Injil, change and corrupt it by convincing people that Jesus died on the cross, and then allow someone else, Christians like the Apostle Paul, to come in there and corrupt the message? Why couldn't Allah protect it? It sounds like you're telling us that Allah is so weak that he can't protect his word, and it sounds like you're telling us that the Quran is wrong when it says that no one can corrupt the words of Allah. So think about how many problems you're stuck with just based on the facts, about what Islam teaches in the Quran and what history tells us. If
Allah is powerless to stop people from corrupting his message, can we even trust the Quran?
Going back to Surah 10:64, which says, they shall have good news in this world's life and the hereafter. There is no changing the words of Allah. You can't change Allah's words. But Allah revealed the Torah and the Gospel. The Torah and the Gospel were still around in his time. Why? Because Allah can protect them. But according to Islam, according to what Muslims tell us, the Bible's been corrupted. Why do they have to believe that? Because the Bible contradicts the teachings of Islam. So Muslims are forced, despite what the Quran says, no matter how many times the Quran affirms that the gospel is still around in Muhammad's time, Muslims have to believe that it was corrupted well before that. But here's the problem. If God revealed the Torah and it was corrupted, and God revealed the gospel and it was corrupted, then Allah isn't powerful enough to protect his message. Can we trust the Quran? Remember, you believe in a God now who can deliver a message, and he's just not powerful enough to stop it from being corrupted. Well, if you believe in a God who's not powerful enough to protect his message, how can you believe that the Quran has not been corrupted? What are you going to say? Are you going to say you know from history that the Quran has been perfectly preserved? No, you don't. I dare you to call in and say that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. And I will take you to your most trusted sources, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawud, showing you from your own sources that your Quran has been corrupted. So theologically, if you believe in a God who can't protect his own message, you have no theological reason to trust that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. And historically, since we know historically that the Quran has been changed numerous times, you have no historical reason, no historical basis for saying that the Quran has been perfectly preserved. So if you're going to criticize the Bible, you need to throw out the Quran as well, my friends.
Once the Christian heresy had started, why did Allah help the Christians rise to power?
Now, think about this. According to Islam, Jesus presented a message, and that message was Islam. Then Allah came along, corrupted the message by getting people to believe that Jesus died on the cross when he didn't. And someone else came along, the Apostle Paul, for instance, and he corrupted the message even further. So in the first century, the message is already corrupted by belief in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. But does Allah stop these heretical views? Does he correct them and make sure that the true followers of Jesus, that they become dominant? If you're a Muslim, you have to believe that the message was corrupted, and then Allah helped the message spread and become dominant. Remember, according to the Quran, Allah helped the followers of Jesus until they became uppermost over the Jews. Well, when did the followers of Jesus become more powerful than the Jews? When Christianity became dominant in the Roman Empire. But by that time, the message was Jesus died on the cross for sins, he rose from the dead, and he claimed to be divine. So the people that Allah helped, the people that Allah helped become dominant are the ones who are spreading this false heresy according to Islam. Allah didn't help the followers of Jesus who believed in Islam become powerful enough to take over the Roman Empire. No. He helped the followers of Jesus who are preaching a false, corrupt version of Christianity. Those are the ones he helped. So I would ask you, instead of helping the true followers of Jesus who are Muslims, according to you, instead of helping them, why did he help the Christians who believed in Jesus' deity, death, and resurrection? Why did he help them become dominant? Why? Why would he help people who are spreading false beliefs, shirk, and heresy? Why? What is your God thinking? I want to know.
If Allah deceives people who follow his prophets, how do Muslims know that he isn't deceiving them? Your comment.
This is a very important question, because you Muslims believe in a God who deceives people, even deceives people who follow his prophets. Follow me now. According to Islam, Jesus won followers. Those followers agreed with Jesus, and they testified that there's only one God and that they are Muslims. So Jesus had Muslim followers. These Muslim followers of Jesus came to believe that he died on the cross. Where did they get the idea that he died on the cross? They got that idea from Allah, who tricked people into believing that Jesus died on the cross. So, even people who devoutly follow his prophets, even people who follow God's prophets, Allah will still trick them into believing false teachings. If you believe in a God who will trick and deceive even the people who follow his messengers, why do you believe that he's not tricking you? In other words, if you believe in a deceiver God who deceives people who follow his prophets, how do you know that he didn't send Muhammad as a false prophet who's going to deceive the Arabs? Why? I mean, think about this. You believe that Allah deceived the Jews. Why? Because he just doesn't like the Jews? Well, if you're going to say that, Allah deceived the Jews because he just doesn't like Jews, well, think about this. The Arabs, they're rejecting the gospel, they're rejecting his message. If you believe in a God who deceives people for no real reason other than he just doesn't like them, how do you know Allah didn't like the Arabs and so he sends them a false prophet to keep them deceived? Once you have a God who deceives people for no reason, I don't know how you can trust anything, even the revelations that you think are from God.
Since Allah deceived people about Jesus, and since he couldn't protect the rest of Jesus' message, what did Jesus ultimately accomplish?
Allah couldn't protect the message of Jesus. Remember that even according to Islam, Allah helped corrupt the message of Jesus by influencing people and convincing them that Jesus died on the cross. And when people like the Apostle Paul came and corrupted Islam, according to what Muslims tell me, Allah just couldn't protect that message. So the question is, what did Jesus really accomplish according to Islam? Muslims, call in and tell me, what did Jesus get done? What did he ultimately accomplish? If you're a Muslim, you have to say he didn't accomplish anything. You might say he preached for 33 years, but what did he do that lasted? He didn't do anything that lasted. The only two sorts of people who are around later in the first century are people who are rejecting him. They're guilty of rejecting one of Allah's messengers, or people who are bowing down, calling him Lord, and saying he died on the cross for their sins. They're guilty of believing in a corrupt version of what Jesus told them. But we don't have anyone later in the first century, after Allah tricked everyone into believing that Jesus died on the cross, we don't have anyone who's believing in the pure message of Jesus. So what did Jesus accomplish? No matter what Jesus did during his life, Allah immediately came in and tricked people and corrupted the message. And then the Apostle Paul came in right after that, corrupted the message even more. And there's just nothing left of Jesus' work. Jesus' followers were committing shirk and calling him Lord and saying he died on the cross for their sins. And those who rejected Jesus, they were guilty too. So what you have in Islam is, at the end of the day, you're telling me that Jesus, the word of Allah and a spirit from him, who was born of a virgin, who lived the most miraculous life in history, who had a miraculous end to his life because he's raised to Allah, accomplished absolutely nothing. And what you're really telling me is Jesus did nothing. So even though Muslims claim, we have this high view of Jesus, we really respect Jesus, if you follow it through, if you follow Islam's teachings about Jesus through to the logical conclusion, you dishonor and disgrace Jesus by saying that he didn't do anything that lasted. And you insult a man you claim to believe in.
David, why don't you sort of sum everything up for us? What we've been talking about today, how does all of this compare with the Christian view?
And that's the key question, because Muslims are constantly criticizing the Christian view, saying we've got problems, we're blaspheming, we're committing shirk, we've got problems, and they've got the correct view. But think about the facts that we've presented about what Islam teaches and the Islamic view that results from all of this, and compare this with the Christian view. Muslims claim that they have the true view of God, that they have the correct view. They have a very high view of God, and they respect and honor God. But they believe in a God who deceives people for no reason. Remember, there's no reason for Allah to deceive the Jews or to deceive Jesus' followers. There's no reason for Allah to do that. Nothing good came of it. Why did he do it? So Allah deceives people for no reason. Allah starts false religions. Remember, Christianity couldn't have started without belief in Jesus' death. Where did belief in Jesus' death come from? It came from Allah tricking and deceiving people. So Allah tricks and deceives people for no reason. He starts false religions. He overthrows the work of his prophet. Remember, Allah sends Jesus, gives him a virgin birth, has him speaking right after birth. He lives the most miraculous life in history. Allah raises him to himself, and then Allah destroys everything Jesus worked for, overthrows the message, and corrupts the message of Christianity and deceives Jesus' followers, again, for no reason. And Allah is powerless to protect the message. So the Quran says that no one can corrupt Allah's words, and yet Allah reveals the Injil, and then the message is corrupted by Allah and other people like the Apostle Paul. So Allah just can't protect his message. This is the God you're proclaiming to us, a God who deceives people for no reason, who works against his own prophets, and who's so powerless, who's so weak, that he can't even protect the message that he has revealed. And what do you say about Jesus? Muslims say, we have the correct view of Jesus. We have a really high, respectful view of Jesus. But they believe that he ultimately accomplished absolutely nothing. He didn't accomplish anything that lasted. And he was horrible at choosing followers. According to Islam, the Muslim view, Jesus chose followers, and then they were totally corrupted. They were totally corrupted by Allah and the Apostle Paul. So Jesus couldn't choose followers who would actually last through everything. So Jesus didn't know how to choose followers, and he ultimately accomplished nothing. Compare this with the Christian view. Of course, the one true God is powerful enough to send his message, and if he sends a message, it's going to accomplish the purpose that he sends it for. He's not going to turn around and corrupt his own message. He's not going to allow someone else to come along and corrupt his message. God is going to protect the message, and it's going to accomplish what he sends it for. If God sends Jesus to die on the cross for sins, that's what's going to happen. No one's going to conquer or overthrow that message. The message is going to be successful. according to Christianity, God was successful. His will was done every step of the way. God sends Jesus into the world. Jesus does exactly what he's commanded to do. He fulfills it perfectly. While he's here, he chooses followers who are going to carry his message on to the end of the world. He rises from the dead. He appears to them, and they go to their deaths, passing on the message of Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity, which was what God wanted them to do. So according to Islam, God is a deceiver. He's weak. He can't protect his message. He corrupts the message of his own of people who believe in him and people who follow his prophets. According to Christianity, God is victorious every step of the way. Jesus is victorious every step of the way. Islam, at the end of the day, is an insult to God. It's blasphemy against God. It's an insult to the Lord Jesus Christ. And Christianity affirms God's power, his love. It presents God as completely victorious every step of the way, and it presents a Jesus who did exactly what he was sent to do, and whose message has been passed on to this very day.